Now let's turn to other forms of consumer protection. Obviously, strict liability for products is one of the consumer protection ideas, but there are a bunch of other laws and statutes that are aimed at addressing issues of concern to consumers. The Federal Trade Commission is a federal agency that promotes consumer protection and reduces unfair competition. We already talked about them with regard to antitrust violations. But the Bureau of Consumer Protection within the Federal Trade Commission seeks to educate consumers regarding their rights and also assists with the enforcement of consumer protection laws. There are also credit protection laws. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act regulates consumer credit reporting agencies and provides procedures for regulating the proper use and release of credit reports. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act prohibits institutions from discrimination relating to providing credit. The Fair Debt Collection Act prohibits abusive and unfair debt collection practices. The Truth in Lending Act requires the fair disclosure of all credit terms, so presumably you can't get hit with interest rates and other kinds of credit terms that are that you're unprepared for. And then there's also privacy protection acts. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act was enacted to protect consumers' personal information and work with states as well as federal agencies to generate policies to facilitate those protection efforts. So they're trying to safeguard consumers' personal information by ensuring that any financial institution that has access to consumers' private information keeps that information confidential. It ensures that consumers receive better disclosure regarding a financial institution's policies under which they share confidential information, and it prohibits obtaining information under false pretenses, particularly consumers' private financial information. There are also unfair competition laws. We obviously looked at antitrust laws, which are the principal way of doing unfair competition, but also there are other kinds of unfair competition. The Lanham Act, for instance, is the federal trademark statute, which prohibits trademark infringement and imposes penalties on those who engage in infringing behavior. A trademark, just so you know, is a distinct mark or symbol that identifies a business and its products. And if you infringe someone's trademark, you're essentially diluting the ability of that mark to identify that company's products. States have also adopted rules protecting trade secrets, which are formulas, practice, processes, designs, other kinds of confidential information that give businesses a competitive advantage in the marketplace. So, you know, you might think of the recipe for Coca-Cola or something like that as a trade secret, and if you disclose a trade secret, that in itself could be illegal. False and deceptive advertising is also considered unfair competition, and the FTC regulates that as well.